Hello, welcome to this hard mode Arch Glacor guide using Necromancy. It has been a few weeks since Necromancy was released, and Necromancy has taken over as the best in class style for many bosses. While I think high Enrage Arch Glacor can be done faster with other methods, Necromancy has made this boss a lot more relaxing. So hopefully, this guide will help those of you that are looking to climb Enrage at Arch Glacor with Necro. This guide will be split into multiple parts. First, I will talk about gear and inventory. Then I will talk about the actual fight. I will then give some tips and tricks about using Necro as the boss before ending with an example kill. Gear. So for gear and inventory, I will show you what equipment you need and then talk about some other possibilities and optional things to bring. For weapons, the Tier 95 Omni Guard and Soulbound Lantern are the best choices. The highest tier Death Guard and Skull Lantern will also work if you don't have access. For the main hand Omni Guard, I am using Aftershock 4 comboed with Equilibrium 2. You can substitute with just Aftershock 4 if you wish. For the offhand Lantern, I am using Precise 6 Ruthless 1 combo. You can use just Precise 6 if you're unable to get P6R1. Ideally, you want to use the Tier 95 First Necromancer set for armor. If you don't have the Tier 95 set, use the Tier 90 or even the Tier 80 Death Dealer Power Armor. If you didn't go the Power Armor route with your upgrade or are struggling a bit with kills, you can also use the Death Warden Tank set. I am using 3 pieces of the Tier 95 set and the helmet of the Tier 90 Power Armor set because I do not own the crown of the First Necromancer. The only exception here is the glove. You'll want to use Cinderbangs since Arch Glacor is susceptible to poison. For armor perks, I am using Crackling 4 comboed with Relentless 5, Biting 4, Impatient 4 comboed with Devoted 4, and Invigorating 4. You can switch the Crackling 4 Relentless 5 to Crackling 4 Relentless 3, which is easier to obtain. Biting 4 can be changed for Biting 3, although that is less recommended due to how good Biting 4 is. If you're struggling with kills, you can swap out either Impatient 4 or Invigorating 4 for Enhanced Devoted. For the cape, I am wearing the combined Zuck cape. The Necromancy Zuck cape Igneous Calmore will do fine if you don't have the combined one. If you don't have the Zuck cape, you can use the best stat cape you have. This can be the Fight Clean Necromancy cape, Tokar Calmore, a max cape, or any skill cape. However, be aware that the Zuck cape makes Death Skulls a lot more powerful, so I recommend getting the Zuck cape before doing PVMing with Necro if you can. For the amulet, Essence of Finality is the best choice here. Optimally, you want an EOF with Death Guard spec while wielding the Tier 95 Omni Guard weapon. I do not, so I have just a random EOF here. You can use an Amulet of Souls if you do not have an EOF. For rings, I have a Reaver's Ring for the crit buff. If you don't have Reaver's Ring, you can use Ring of Death or Asylum Surgeons or Luck of Dwarves. For the pocket slot, I have the full book. You can use a Grim if you're willing to share out the pages, or a Jazz book if you don't have the full book. Grim is the best choice here, but the page upkeep is costly. Jazz book is less good than full because there are times during the fight when you can't attack Arch Glacor. Finally, I have a rune pouch with Body, Astral, and Blood runes for Disruption Shield and Borrowed Power, which I have set to Smoke Cloud. Inventory. For the inventory, let's talk about the mandatory stuff. You'll want the typical PVM stuff: Overload, some type of Adrenaline Potion, Prayer Potion, Vuln Bombs, Food, and Brews. Adrenaline Renewals are the best choice for your Adrenaline Potion, but you can go with Replenishment Potion instead. For food, I am using Rocktail since that is what I have. You can use Selfish if you like. Similarly for brews, I am using vials because I'm an Iron Man and I want to conserve flasks. You can use flasks if you find yourself running low on food. You can also use blue blubberfish if your food consumption is not an issue. You will want all 4 of the Necromancy runes for incantations, as well as the Ectoplasm for summoning. The final essential item you will want is the Power Burst of Vitality, which is very helpful for the cannon mechanic. Now for the less required stuff. First is the Excalibur for health and Elven Ritual Shard for prayer restoration. They're both nice to have, but optional if you do not own them. I also have the Glove of the First Necromancy in my inventory as a switch when conjuring, since the additional piece give an additional 7% duration on my summons. This is not needed if you don't like gear switching. One other thing you will want is weapon poison. This is extremely important to speed up your kills. However, I drink my weapon poison at the bank to save an inventory space. If you don't want to do that, you can bring a weapon poison with you and drink during the boss fight. Familiars. The familiar you want to use here is Blood Reavers, since it combos well with your poison. The scroll also heals you, so it helps with survivability. I have my Reavers set to not use scrolls automatically. I manually cast the scrolls when to heal. This is because 1. Scrolls are a pain to farm on Iron Man and quite expensive on main. 2. Using scrolls depletes your Reaver HP, so by manually casting, I can make sure my Reaver don't die mid-kill. If you are auto-casting your scrolls, you will have to play around with the auto-cast settings to ensure your Reaver don't die. Around 7 to 8 seconds per scroll cast should generally be okay. If you don't have Reavers, you can use a Yak. Calgarian Demons and Ripper Demons are also options if you don't need the healing from Reavers. Aura. For Aura, I am using Vampirism Aura. This is to combo with the Reaver, and Poison, since Vamp heals will trigger Reavers, which can trigger poison stacks. You can also use Supreme Invigorate or Majra Aura. Spellbook. When I am doing a kill, I am on the Lunar Spellbook with Borrow Power set to Smoke Cloud. This allows me to easily cast Disruption Shield and Smoke Cloud. If you have your Reaver set to auto-cast scrolls and you find your Reaver often die in mid-kill, you may want to be on the Ancient Spellbook or use Spellbook Swap spell to cast Prism of Restoration to heal your familiar mid-fight. Now, let's talk about the actual fight. Before the fight, I drink my weapon poison at the bank, then I get Adren from the crystals before heading through to the boss. You can also cast Darkness to have a 20% chance to dodge attacks. Before entering the boss arena, I will summon my zombie. After I enter, I will conjure my ghost and immediately search the middle in the same GCD. Then I summon my skeleton, command my ghost, cast Life Transfer to extend my conjurations, and then command my skeleton. At this point, Arch Glacor should be targetable. One thing to note is that because I have a piece of Death Dealer armor, Arch Glacor tend to become death marked at some point during the kill. If you are using full first Necromancer set, you want to shift all your abilities by 1, so you can cast Invoke Death before you attack Arch Glacor. In this case, you want to summon Zombie and summon Ghost before entering the instance. Then you can summon Skeleton, command Ghost, Life Transfer, command Skeleton, and then invoke Death before Arch Glacor becomes targetable. Alternatively, you can cast Invoke Death mid-kill when you're unable to attack Arch Glacor. For example, when you're running between pillars, or when Arch Glacor is still immune after the arm spec. Once Arch Glacor is targetable, I will target cycle the Ingenuity of the Humans into Smoke Cloud and Von Bomb. You can skip the Smoke Cloud and just Von Bomb if you do not wish to do that. Bring a wand to cast Smoke Cloud if you want to be extra tryhard. This will save you a global cooldown since spells cost 1 GCD to cast when wielding Necromancy weapons. However, you will need to cast Smoke Cloud with the wand, then instantly switch back to your Necromancy weapon to begin the fight. From there, I will throw out a Dead Skulls and build back up to near 100% Adren while waiting to see what the first spec is. The fight. So, the Arch Glacor fight has 5 main specs to manage. They occur in random orders before repeating. I won't talk about the specifics of each mechanic, but I will talk about how you can DPS and deal with each mechanic using Necromancy. Minion spec. The first spec we'll discuss is the Minion spec, where Arch Glacor summons Glacites. So the Minion spec is relatively easy to deal with due to Threads of Fate incantation. When Glacor summons Glacite minions, target the bolstering Glacite, Threads of Fate, Soul Sap, and Volley should kill all the minions. If you are low in Enrage and the bolstering Glacite doesn't get summoned, targeting any one of the minions will still work. You can skip Soul Sap if you're already at max Soul stacks. If you accidentally use Soul Sap before Threads of Fate, you can use Finger of Death or your weapon spec instead. Be aware that Threads of Fate have a range of 4 tiles. If the bolstering Glacite is too far from the rest of the Glacite minions, you may have to lure it closer before you do your Threads rotation. Depending on the spec rotation, you may get back-to-back minions where your Thread of Fate isn't off cooldown yet. If this happens, you will have to AoE the minions down with Spectral Scythe and / or Soul Strike. After you kill the minions, you can reconjure all your undead and command them without losing adrenaline. You can do this in the same order as you did at the start of the fight. You should also use Blood Transfer. So you will do Summon Zombie, Summon Ghost, Summon Skeleton, Command Ghost, Blood Transfer, Command Skeleton, before targeting Arch Glacor again. Flurry spec. The Flurry spec is when Arch Glacor starts to use other attack styles. There isn't much to do but pray flick correctly. You may also want to use some defensives such as Debilitate and Disruption Shield to mitigate the damage. This spec is a good time to be using Living Death and Death Skulls, as you will have a relatively long uninterrupted period to do damage. Pillars of Ice. Dealing with Pillars of Ice with Necro isn't any different to any other styles. Just pick your favorite movement path to avoid the pillars. I like to stand in the corner, dive diagonally, then surge past the beam to the other end of the platform. One thing to note is that this mechanic will put you out of range of Death Skulls. Therefore, do not Death Skulls when you see this mechanic coming up. Instead, it will be best if you try to dump your weapon spec instead to do damage. In between running through the pillars, you'll have some downtime where you can life transfer if your minions are up. Frost Cannon. Similar to pillars, how you deal with Frost Cannon doesn't change much. Make sure your Bone Shield is up and then anticipate, reflect and turn your prey off to res the last hit of the cannon. If you're having issues with the timing of the res, you can use Devotion instead. However, learning the reflect timing is excellent to heal yourself and deal huge damage to Arch Glacor. A few things to note. If you're doing the reflect route, you will want to make sure you're above 5.5k HP before the cannon starts, otherwise you won't survive the first 2 hits. You need to anticipate, otherwise you will get stunned by the cannon. I use Lesser Bone Shield to save our Necromancy rune cost, but be aware that Resonance with Lesser Bone Shield doesn't heal you back to full. It will only heal about 6k HP on the last hit. If you're concerned about your health, you can use the Greater Bone Shield at the expense of higher rune cost. If you get back-to-back beams and your devotion is on cooldown, this is when you want to use the Power Burst of Vitality Potion to save yourself. Vidpot at full HP will allow you to tank 2 hits of the cannon, allowing you to res the last hit to get back to full HP. This is a good time to Death Skull since you'll be standing in close proximity to Arch Glacor for a relatively long time. Just be careful of your adrenaline to ensure you have enough adrenaline to reflect. Use the Limitless Sigil if you need to. Exposed Core. The final mechanic is the Exposed Core. Due to the high DPS of Necromancy, Exposed Core is generally not a problem unless you get to 2.5k and above Enrage. If you have Necrosis stacks, you want to use Finger of Death. If you have your Soul stacks, you want to use Volley. If you have neither, you can use your weapon spec. If you have absolutely nothing, you can still kill the arms relatively easily with just basics if you have to. After the arms are dead, this is another opportunity to resummon your minions. That's it for the general mechanics. Now I want to talk about some general DPS advice for Necromancy while killing Arch Glacor. Tips and tricks. Death Skulls is your strongest ability. You want to use it whenever possible unless you see the next spec will cancel the skulls, for example Minion spec or Pillar spec. You should also combine Split Soul with your Death Skulls to maximize your damage. To do this, you will need to Soul Split Flick. If you're struggling with flicking, or if you are flicking but struggling with HP, you can choose not to Split Soul. A common rotation is to Living Death into Death Skulls, Split Soul, then build and do a second Death Skulls. This will allow you to do 2 Death Skulls within 1 Split Soul, allowing you to do massive amounts of damage. Living Death resets your Death Skulls, so you will always want to use your Death Skulls first if it is on cooldown, then Living Death, because then you will get your Death Skulls back up again immediately. You will want to make sure your Skeleton Conjuration is always up. It costs 0 adrenaline to summon and activate, so you don't need to wait until you have no target before summoning it. You should be able to get 2 life transfer per summon. This will be very useful to ensure you maximize minion damage between summons. Try to use Bloat whenever Arch Glacor isn't bloated. This ability is super strong and it synergizes well with Reverse and Poison. Finally, remember to dump your Necrosis stacks with Finger of Death, your soul stacks with volley. You never want to sit on max necro sets and soul stacks for too long. Before we go into the fight talkthrough, I have just 2 final tips for the fight. If you find yourself still losing adrenaline while summoning minions, even if you have killed your target, try using an attack ability before summoning. You should get a message to say there is no attackable target, and then when you summon, you should not lose any adrenaline. Life transfer can hurt and can kill you if you get comboed by Arch Glacor the same tick you life transfer. You can try to eat up the same tick as you life transfer, or you can devo before you life transfer to reduce your KO potential. So now I want to talk through 2 kills that I've done back to back. These kills are not perfect, but they should give you an idea of what the fight looks like with Necromancy. So before I get into the instance, I summon my zombie. Once I'm in the instance, I summon my ghost, search to the center, I summon my skeleton, I activate my ghost, I cast life transfer, I activate my skeleton, and this is where I target cycle with Smoke Cloud and Bone Bomb. I switch myself back to Cinderbanks because I was using the extra gloves to get at long cast time. I casted Death Skulls at the start, and I see the first ability is the pillar, so I'm running to the side to avoid the pillars. So this is the way I like to do it, where I do diagonal dive and then search through. And from here, it's just building back up to 100 to see what the next spec is. The next spec is arms, so I didn't live in death. Instead, I dumped my necrosis stacks and my spec to get out of the arms quicker. Once I'm out of the arms, normally you would want to resummon, but I already had summons with relatively long timers, so I just blood transfer again. Here I dumped my soul stacks because I was at 4 stacks, and then I cast the Living Death. Luckily, this is where he does the flurry, so I could use this time to do Death Skulls into Split Soul building, and then using Death Skulls again where I can to be able to cast 2 Death Skulls within 1 Living Death. The attacks do hurt, so I'm using a combination of Eating and Disruption Shield to try to mitigate some of the damage. The next spec you can see here will be the cannon, so she's pushed me to the side. So I anticipate, I reflect, I take the first 2 hits, and then I res the last hit. As you can see here, because I'm using the Lesser Bone Shield, I don't get a full heal of the last res. If you're concerned about that, as I said in the guide, you can use a Greater Bone Shield. So here I'm just doing some basics while waiting for the next spec, which is now minions. So here I Threads of Fate, I cast Soul, and I cast Volley. Actually, I don't think I cast Soul, I had full stacks, so I casted Volley. And here, because all my summons have died, I'm resummoning. So I'm summoning Zombie, Ghost, Skeleton, Command my Ghost, cast Life Transfer, I casted Devotion because I thought I might be dying because of the life transfer and the hit, and then back on Arch Glacor. I did not command Skeleton, which is a mistake. I should have done that. So here you can see I switched back again to Cinderbanes because I was using the extra Necromancy gloves to have a longer time when I summon my conjurations. Here is just a similar rotation as before, where I am Living Death into Death Skulls. My Living Death isn't really fully used before he uses the next spec, which is Pillar, which is unfortunate because it means I can't make the full use of my second Skulls. So instead of casting second Skulls, I've dumped my weapon spec instead. And here, as I'm running, I am just recasting Life Transfer to extend the duration of my summons again before getting back onto Arch Glacor. It's most likely gonna be cannon spec, so I casted I'm casting Death Skulls before doing the same thing of Anticipate, Reflect, and Res. So this was a mistake here where I volleyed when he goes immune, but it doesn't really matter. I just threads. target the minions, soul sap, and then volley again to kill them. I switched back to Necromancy gloves to do the whole summoning thing, but actually I wasn't paying enough attention. The Arch Glacor was at a relatively low HP here, so I didn't actually need to do the whole summoning and life transfer. I could probably have just DPS Arch Glacor down. I probably didn't even need to resummon, or if I did, I didn't need to resummon everything. So because of delay, he's going to his next spec, which is the arms. So I'm killing the arms, going back onto Arch Glacor and DPSing Arch Glacor down to minimum. As you can see here, I didn't cast Invoke Death, but Arch Glacor is Death Mark because I'm using one piece of Death Dealer armor. So that's one kill. So I'm just banking. You can see here my weapon poison is still active with 6 minutes left, so I didn't reapply weapon poison. Because of the life transfer I did last kill, some of my minions were still alive, so I just switch off my offhand to dismiss them, and then I do the same thing. Summon zombie, goes into instance, summon skeleton, summon ghost, summon skeletons, command ghost, life transfer, command skeleton, then into smoke cloud, into Von Bomb. So I do like to Excalibur right at the start because of the life transfer taking my HP, so I like to use Excalibur to get my HP back. You can see here the first spec unfortunately is arms, so it means a lot of my Death Skulls didn't attack Arch Glacor, but it's fine because the Death Skulls end up bouncing to the arms. So that's one thing to note, is that you should also, depending on where you stand, Death Skulls will bounce to the arm, so you should try to stand near the arm you will hit. The next spec is the minion spec. So my minions, my summons are still alive, so I'm unlikely to resummon them. I'm just doing threads into volley. So rather than resummoning, which will take too long, I'm just life transferring again to extend duration of my conjurations, and then going back onto Arch Glacor. So the next spec is Flurry, but unfortunately my Living Death is still on cooldown from when I activated earlier. So I'm just doing some DPS with Death Skulls when it's off cooldown, making use of my volley stacks when I have full stacks, making use of my necrosis stacks when I get to full necrosis stacks, and dumping some weapon specs if I have the adren. So this is one more thing about Arch Glacor I need to be aware of. When he does, after Flurry, he tends to overlap the specs. So you can see here, while he's kind of doing the whilst he's pushing me to the pillar spec, he's also doing that melee swipe as well. So same thing as before, just avoiding the pillars and then getting back onto Arch Glacor. So you can see here he's likely going to the cannon spec. So I'm building back up to 5.5k and above. Anticipate, reflect, and then res the last hit. So here I can see my Death Skulls has 1 second of cooldown, so I'm waiting for off cooldown to cast it before building back up and doing Living Death again, because Living Death will cancel the cooldown of my Death Skulls. Unfortunately, I didn't get to Living Death in the end because he did the pillar spec again, so it's not worth me Living Deathing when I have to run away. So instead, I just used weapon spec. Again, just running and avoiding the pillars. You can see here my skeleton is up because you want to apply a skeleton whenever you can, even if you have a target. It might not be worth using adrenaline to summon the other two, but it's definitely worth summoning the skeleton. So he does the arms. I'm killing the arms. Killing the arms means I lose target, so I put the first Necromancy glove back on and summon my ghost, my zombie, activating my ghost life transfer to extend duration, and then going back onto Arch Glacor with a Death Skulls. So Arch Glacor here is going to Flurry, so I'm gonna try to build back up to 100% and try to use Living Death with a Dren Pot, and then it's normal rotation of Death Skulls into Split Soul, building back up to a second Death Skulls, and applying that. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get second Death Skulls off because he is going to go into the next spec. I do actually get it off, but I'm in a precarious adrenaline situation, so I'm trying to build back up to 50%, anticipate, reflect, and then rest. So that was the last tick I could have done that, I think. That was very close. I may have missed the res if I wait any longer. So keep attacking Arch Glacor. We're back to attacking the minions. So here again, Threads of Fate, Soul Staff, Volley, depending on how many stacks you have. I am not resummoning here because my summons still have timer, and also Arch Glacor has very low HP, so I'm going back down to Arch Glacor and just DPSing him. And that is the end of the kill. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment with any question that you have.